Fleet. The opinions expressed on the following program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of WCLO or Big Radio staff, management, or sponsors.
WCLO presents the Stan Milam Show.
Welcome back, folks, and welcome to our Minuteman Press guest line, Paul Dayton. He is an author, and he has a book titled Correcting Our Financial Miseducation, Raising the Bar for the Average. Good afternoon, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon, Stan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I have had a chance to go through your book, and one of the reasons I was eager to have you on the show is some of the positions, I guess I could say, some of the positions you have taken that are contrary to established positions by financial advisors and that sort of thing. And I'll start off with one of them, and then we can talk about what led you to take these, I'll call them contrarian positions. And one is having to do with 401ks and mutual funds, something that I think most portfolios are include, and financial advisors might say, if your 401k includes a mutual fund, it can be diversified, and it's a pretty good way to invest. And you take a different approach to that. Tell our listeners why, and why that might not be the best way to proceed.
Sure. So you really asked two questions. One is about the 401k account, and another one is about financial advisors. Now, the financial advisors ones I'll answer first, just because it's the shortest answer. Financial advisors get paid when you give them your business, and they, like all employees, are incentivized to keep their job as simple as possible. So when you it's easy to sit at a desk and just have limit to the three options. So your 401k plan limits the person using it to three options, three types of money, which are stocks, bonds, and cash. Okay. I mean, they don't call it cash, they call it money market, but it's just cash. Okay. These three types of money, and I include a money chart in the book, I think it's on pages 8 and 9, that includes about a dozen types of money and compares and contrasts their strengths and weaknesses. The reason I do this is to show how bad stocks, bonds, and cash are at long-term growth and at producing paychecks. They're like the worst. They're terrible. The object of a portfolio, so most people in America who have sort of like made it, I'll call it, right? The bar for the average on the personal finance side is you go to high school, you fetch for grades, you go to college, you fetch for more grades, eventually you leave with a certificate, you use that certificate to beg somebody to hire you for a job at their company, you try to stick with that company as long as you can, all your savings are in your single family home, the equity in that home, and then your 401k plan, all other money is basically spent on consumer spending. And that's someone who has like made it, right? That's someone doing pretty good. So the reason that that's sort of bad is because the 401k plan limits you to stocks, bonds, and cash, which again are bad at producing paychecks and are bad at long-term growth. The financial advisor, as long as people will still pay them to do it, why would they want to have to work any harder than to limit to those three options and sort of put people in one or the other and say that, pay me my 2%, please.
So
go ahead.
Paul, is a mutual fund one way to broaden the options beyond those three?
No, because a mutual fund is just either stocks or bonds, right? It's comprised of stocks or bonds. Now, I'm talking about people not who have their 401k plan or their stock portfolio is a small portion of their savings, but people who have maybe the bulk of their savings in their 401k plan. Okay. That's what I mean. If somebody has sort of a small portion of their portfolio, I mean, yes, of course, a mutual fund is more diversified than individual stocks. So,
Yeah.
of course, that reduces the risk of total loss. Yes, that's correct. But these things are inferior to other forms, like, for example, rental real estate, other small business. Now, small business can be things like doing a little nail parlor Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You might do it out of a room in your house and eventually move up to renting a space in a strip mall. Right, small business can mean, buying a lawnmower and cutting some lawns, and then eventually hiring somebody else to push the mower. So small business is something that scares a lot of people because they think it's this big, you have to basically put all your eggs in one basket. Either all your eggs are in the work for somebody else and be dependent on what they'll pay you basket, or work for yourself in one business and risk, actually losing money. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can sort of have it both ways. And that's kind of what I recommend in my book on the personal finance side, is to sort of, you start off with a feeder job. Okay. Your employer is your job, just feeding money into your portfolio. Then with that money, obviously you need to take care of your essentials, but you need to save money. And then once you save some money, now it's, okay, what do I do with that cash, right? What do I do with that? With inflation, see, cash is the guaranteed loser because of inflation.
Yeah.
People think that cash is safe, but it's not. They say, oh, well, if I take $1,000, 10 $100 bills, put them in a shoebox in my closet, come back in 10 years, pull out that same shoebox, say, see, I didn't lose any money. They're all still here. 1, 2, 5, 6, 9, 10. See, all still here. However, they take that cash out into the world and they try to buy a car or some housing or whatever the case may be. It doesn't go as far. So in effect, they have lost purchasing power. So they really have lost money.
Paul,
so some of these things are sort of deceptive. Go ahead.
You mentioned the term productive assets. How does that carve out a special kind of asset? What are you talking about there? And how critical are productive assets to financial planning?
Sure. So assets that produce income, if instead of calling them a rent check, for example, take the example of residential real estate, owning rental properties. That's something a ton of regular people do, and include in their portfolio. You can't do that inside of your 401k. In fact, the only tale from my career that I include in the book is a story where I bought a residential rental property. It was only the second property I ever bought. Long story short, it was a disaster. Everything went wrong, seemingly. And it took 15 months before I could get a bank loan for it. So I had really high payments and all these problems. You know what happened? In those 15 months that were like a disaster, I made 33% return on my principal just through debt equity alone. So when every time you make like your mortgage payment, for example, or your car payment, the amount that goes to pay off the principal is the amount that you're actually reducing your liabilities by, and therefore becoming more wealthy by that amount. So I made 33% on my money in 15 months just on that end alone. And then it became cash flow positive. I think it was $400 a month thereafter. And I only used about $15,000 of my own money. So, I mean, let's say it was about $400 a month. That's about, I think it was $300 a month. So let's say it was $3,000 a year. We'll lowball it off the top of my head. Go to the stock market, find anything you can do where you take $15,000. In 15 months, you get a 33% return on your principal. Thereafter, it starts producing a 30-something% dividend, and your chances of losing all your money are zero because the property has homeowners insurance. I can't lose. There's no way for me to lose everything, right?
Well,
that's something where everything went bad, and it kills the things available to you inside your 401k plan. And that's the reason I use that story. See how limiting? So this is what happens to people. They'll start putting a little bit of money away. I hear you trying to break in. Go ahead.
Well, I just thought of 2008. Real estate took a hit. So there is some risk, is there not?
A risk of temporary, well, so did the stock market, but there is risk of course, of your principal being reduced due to market forces, yes, but the risk of it going to zero is not there, right? If you buy an individual company that offers really high dividends and really explosive growth, it comes with the associated risk of it could be worthless any day now, right? That's why they have to incentivize people with those attractive perks, right, in order to get people to lend their money to their company by buying shares of stock.
Okay.
So that's the point of that. But however, when it comes to the 2008, now in terms of principle, your real estate may have been negatively affected, and that may have taken a few years. However, supposing that it's producing rental income, that is cash flow positive, paying paychecks, or call them dividend checks, those don't stop.
Yeah, and I think
you're still getting that return.
Yeah. And 08 had more to do with home mortgages, not necessarily rental property, if I remember. Do I remember that correctly?
You do. It had to do with, this is a whole separate issue, some behind-the-scenes forms of money that people were doing, and the banks were basically getting a little carried away with trying to basically, almost like selling bad, rotten apples, but putting the fresh apples label on them, I guess is sort of the way to make that quick. But real quickly, I want to just point out on this 401k issue. So take this example of the real estate. That's what we've been using. First of all, you can't buy real estate in a 401k. And people will they'll put a little bit in, then they get into their 40s and 50s. They get a six-figure number in there. It's kind of healthy. It starts with a 5, maybe more sometimes. They're still limited to stocks, bonds, and cash. So let's say even if they're only in, stocks, mutual funds, it's producing dividends that might even be, $10,000 a year, we'll say. But again, they're trapped inside that 401k plan.
Okay.
These other accounts, you get paid this money today. So the reason this is better is because the person can become independent of their employer and not feel that employers, under their thumb so badly, controlling their life at a much earlier stage of life.
Okay.
I think the bar for the average, which is reasonable, should be elevated to by the time people are 40 years old, to make half of their own money themselves. That is, half the money they need to pay their bills are produced from their own portfolio. Okay. I think that is a very reasonable standard, and that's something you can never do with a 401k because, again, it doesn't produce income. And even if it does, once you get enough in there to produce enough income to make a difference in your life, it's still trapped inside that 401k. You can't get to it until you're 60 years old.
Paul,
and so, go ahead.
You're mentioning that, create your own portfolio. And you mentioned you could even start out by mowing lawns and then building that business up and having other people push the mower. Based on what I've read in your book and other research, you speak from experience. In the last few minutes that we have left, give our listeners an idea of how you have turned some of those so-called menial jobs into productive ventures that give you control of your portfolio.
Sure. So I'm a person who does not have a college degree. I worked, sort of regular jobs. I just moved out of New York State. I call it Soviet New York, where the loser politics or identity politics, or whatever you want to call it, is strong there. So all these supposed death sentences. I was the guy flipping burgers, making pizzas. I'm the guy I was a janitor. I still do. I'll be a janitor today. I still work part-time jobs. Working these jobs that are supposed to, your fate is determined by your wage. Your fate is determined by the type of work you do. And that's all just nonsense. Hours equals dollars. Myself and a few like-minded people, we all kind of worked our way out of that. And so, I ended up doing 8 ventures in 7 years. I bought 6 houses. I did a secondhand store, and I did a vending machine route. And almost all while working, a full-time job. I did work a little bit hard and made some sacrifices in my 20s, but by the time I was 30, I had a 6-figure net worth, a portfolio that produced, a decent amount of cash flow, enabling me to sort of live a semi-retired lifestyle. I don't live in a mansion or anything, but, I live fine. I have plenty of food to eat and do other stuff like write books and kind of, do more of what I want with my time and with my life. And that's the freedom. Money is freedom. And if I can say this real quickly, in the land, let's say corn was money. Okay, corn, CORN is money. No matter how many bushels of corn one person accumulates, they'll never be as free as the man who can grow their own corn, right? Who has their own self-sufficient, renewable corn supply. And I ran into people, they had these big fat 401k plans, and they're afraid of their employer. I'm over here, I'm 20 years younger than them. I've made, they get paid from their employer wages that are 3 and 4 times what I ever got paid from an employer. And they have, on paper, they have money, but in real life, they have no freedom.
All right, Paul, I want to remind our listeners that this blueprint for what you're saying is contained in your book, Correcting Our Financial Miseducation, Raising the Bar for the Average. Am I assuming our listeners can avail themselves of the book through Amazon or other means?
Yes, sir. Amazon.com. It's only $12.99 in paperback. It's affordable. I want people to check it out. Part 1 of the book is about personal finance. Part 2 of the book's called Vote for Freedom, how to stay free once you get your money together on the personal side. Okay. And I think it's good for everybody.
Paul, thanks very much for joining us. Some very, very interesting thoughts. I encourage folks to invest in your book. It may unlock some opportunities for a lot of people. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great day, Paul.
Thanks, Stan. Same to you.
That's Paul Dayton. He is the author of Correcting Our Financial Miseducation. Check it out on Amazon.com.